Alright, it's time. Time to get frickin' hype because the Solo Leveling anime is about to come out. The long-awaited adaptation of the webcomic sensation sweeping the world. I wanted to say nation because it rhymes, but this shit is going global, baby. Have you seen this? There's billboards in Times Square. Anyway, the Solo Leveling anime is about to come out, and I'm ready. I've been following this series since the webcomic was first translated by fans, back when it was known as Only I Level Up. And now here we are. It's the most hotly anticipated anime of the new season. But as the conversation around solo leveling starts to reach peaks of epic hype, I'm starting to hear more of the same old lines bandied about anytime this series is mentioned. Yeah, I love it, solo leveling's really great, but it's just generic power fantasy trash. Right? That's what you hear all the time. Like, everyone has to talk about solo leveling with this caveat that really it's shit, but we like it anyway. But of course it's trash. We acknowledge we're garbage for enjoying it, but it is pretty good though. Stop. Wait. Before you say it's shallow trash, what does solo leveling do differently? Is it just another standard power fantasy series with a story as cheap as the paper Chugong wrote it on? A trash series only elevated to noteworthiness by the late and great 𝗍𝗶𝗸𝗲's absolutely fucking incredible illustrations. You seeing this shit? No. I put it to you that Solo Leveling is a deeply compelling, character-driven story merely masquerading in the trappings of another MC Gets Strong Wins Everything power fantasy, like three children in a trench coat trying to get in to see interspecies reviewers. Let's start with our main character, Sungjin-woo. Anyway, Sungjin-woo, going with it. The GOAT, the one and only, the legendary hot man of suave and shadows and just intense hotness. Can we get that out of the way first? Oh my god. Anyway, what's different about this man compared to the other power fantasy trope MCs? Let's start with, he's not an edgelord. Okay, I've seen people say that this man is an edgelord, but so help me, I will phone you, he's frickin' not, he's just based. He is strong, that is true, not gonna argue, this series is a power fantasy after all, but he himself, the character, and the way that he's characterized within the world of the story is completely different to a lot of other isekai or overpowered protagonists. He's a very stable, very understated, and mature character. He doesn't get cocky, he doesn't show off. In fact, a lot of the hunters in this series let their power go to their head and they are inevitably punished for their hubris. But not our MC, he stays grounded. The whole thing about him is that he doesn't want anyone to know. He wants to live a normal, peaceful, happy life. So let's kind of analyze where this overpowered character is coming from. He starts out the worst hunter, an E-rank hunter, the quote-unquote world's weakest hunter, as the story is sure to drive in. Our guy sucks. He almost dies on every mission. This man spends his life constantly being healed, barely scraping by because he can only beat the weakest of enemies whose cause he can't sell for shit. He's only a hunter because his mother is dying of some mysterious disease that there's no cure for, and her hospital fees are bleeding him dry. And he can't afford to pay them and take care of his sister alone. So he has no choice but to be a hunter and face death going up against monsters he can't defeat every day. From the beginning, he is humbled by how dangerous this world he lives in actually is. So he's not taken away by the power fantasy of wanting to be the strongest. He doesn't really want to do this at all, right? He doesn't want to be a hunter, but he does it anyway because he has bills to pay and a mum to save, but then the worst happens. He dies, basically. He gets fucking murderized hardcore by this creepy guy and a bunch of his lackeys who's been living rent-free in my head for like 7 years now. He's got games and TV up there. He keeps playing this shithouse earworm song. Keep getting flashbacks of this creepy fucking smile. I mean, look at this guy. That's fucked. Anyway, He gets murderized, and suddenly he wakes up, he's back to life, he's got game mechanics, he can level up in a world where no one else can. What happens next? That's right, you guessed it, he almost fucking dies again. He's in hospital recovering from an actual death experience, but he's got a new daily quest that the game system has given him, and he hasn't done his 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and 10k run, because, again, in case you missed it, he just fucking died and he's in hospital right now. So what happens? He gets thrown into a goddamn desert dungeon with centipedes who are gonna eat his face, and he spends the whole time running for his life. He died, he came back, he reawakened, he's still fucking dying. The world is terrifying. He needs to be stronger. Because here's the kicker, he isn't magically stronger already. He needs to work at it to be able to face this danger that he is constantly in. So he has a key. He goes to this dungeon and he grinds. And it's scary. Because he's facing monsters that he's never had to face before. He's in a situation he would never previously have been strong enough to even survive. And we're shown, step by step, him leveling up, grinding, being the weak-ass E-rank hunter who can't do shit, and having to overcome his own fear, steel his own resolve, and push through that hardship to actually achieve progress and move forward. And this whole time that he's fighting these monsters, he is in mortal peril. He knows he could die. Even once he levels up and defeats a couple of bosses and he gets a new secret dungeon key and he can go to this new special dungeon just for him, the first thing he realizes is he's too fucking weak to even go inside. It's too strong. If he goes in, he will die. So he's leveling up, he's getting stronger, and while he defeats the low-level enemies in front of him, he's not overpowered. He's not outrageously strong because every threat in this world is bigger than him. He's still a guy struggling against this overwhelmingly dangerous, monstrous reality he finds himself in. Because solo leveling is set in the real world, our world. A world that is wholly unequipped to face the devastating strength of the monsters housed within these gates, and one in which the overwhelming majority of the human population has no hunter capability at all. Every day, those extremely rare few who have a hunter's awakening and who inherited some level of power and rank participate in life-threatening raids to clear the dungeons waiting for them beyond the gates. It can take whole teams of elite hunters to take down one strong enemy within these dungeons, and while fame and fortune might await those who return, many don't. Hunters risk their lives and limbs to enter the gates and defeat the bosses within, because if the gates aren't cleared, they will breach. Monsters will flood the real world, and everyone will die. Right from the start, solo leveling puts us in a situation where humans, in general, are always on the back foot. They are not strong. This isn't your standard shonen series where death isn't a real threat, or it only happens every now and then when the writers want to remind us it's possible, or one where we know everyone's gonna be fine because reasons. Much like a lot of the darker action series like Attack on Titan, Devilman, Jujutsu Kaisen, the world of solo leveling is built on gritty realism. This is a world where dismemberment, mutilation, permanent loss of life and limb are very real, very prescient threats. Characters we know and love will die. And you know who doesn't feel strong in this world? Sung Jin-woo. The man who chose to walk into a second secret dungeon within a D-rank gate because he was desperate to save his mother, and who watched everyone around him, everyone stronger than him, die in the most gruesome of ways as a result. The man who was dismembered and murdered, alone in the dark on a cold stone altar, by beings so incomprehensibly powerful it shook the very foundation of what he thought it meant to be weak. in the first place. So he grinds and levels up. We get to watch Sung Jinwoo become stronger. We see him steamroll enemies he used to struggle with, and we get to enjoy that trash power fantasy feeling. But Sung Jinwoo doesn't feel powerful because he's experienced the impossible. He feels threat looming, and he knows something's wrong. No one else seems to be concerned or spending any real time wondering what these gates are. No one's really asking why they started showing up 10 years ago, what the dungeons are for, where the monsters are coming from, or what happens when things don't go the way they anticipate, because it turns out the rules aren't as concrete as they thought. What happens if the gates get stronger, if they can't be cleared before they breach, or what if, I don't know, a second fucking secret dungeon shows up inside the first for some reason? So even as he builds his strength, climbs the hunter ranks, and annihilates whole dungeons, Sung Jinwoo feels unprepared. He knows there are ever-increasing threats on the horizon, enemies that could destroy not just towns or cities, but whole continents. And he knows he can't protect his family from threats of that scale. He's still not strong enough. He's not driven by petty reasons like wanting to become rich or famous, the excitement of an adventure, or the joy of battle. This man doesn't want to be here. But he needs to protect his sister and his mother, his friends, those hunters he's worked with, his country, the world. So he faces the enemy head-on against all odds with the weight of the world and the lives of those he loves on his back. And that's what sets Solo Leveling apart from all the other repetitive trash power fantasies. It's not a series where the main character is inexplicably overpowered, or faces no real challenge, or has some other ass-pull mechanic that lets them crush every encounter that comes their way. And it's not gratuitous. It's a series with a main character who's experienced something horrific, and who, off the back of that trauma, pushes himself to work hard and face his fears, grow and change, even start to lose himself, to overcome the hurdles in front of him through sheer force of will and intense effort. And it's that fear factor, that achievement, that feeling of finally surpassing something that truly threatened the safety of our main character and everyone he loves, that makes Solo Leveling's power fantasy so satisfying. Or something. I don't know. You can call Solo Leveling trash if you want to, but I think if you brush this series off as shallow or generic because MC gets stronger, Shadow Army goes brrr, you're not giving enough credit to the characterization throughout the series or the building of the world and its carefully crafted sense of tension and dread that hangs ominously over every single interaction. Oh man, and we haven't even talked about the way the series explores the ethics of murder, or raising an army of shadows and overriding their will with your own, but I digress. At the end of the day, if you still think Solo Leveling is generic power fantasy garbage, that's okay. Sometimes I like to be wrong too.